Okay, let's look at how we can get and set values on the binding engine. So in this case, you'll see that we are binding the value property of the input against the data object that has a property called first name, and the same with this item here, but except it's the last name. And you'll notice that when we actually run this, no updates actually happen, right? So when we start here, there's nothing going on for us, and when we type in the word John, now it changes. So what's happening under the hood? Well, the first thing that's happening is that it sees that it doesn't have a data object and goes and creates that, and then it sets the first name property on this object. Now, paths is something that you can do. It's not necessarily something that you must do. You can actually bind this directly to the binding context. In this case, that will be the view model, and that's perfectly fine as well, as long as is that the way that you manage your data fits how you want to work. That's fine. So we've just taken the data part out, and so if we go to this now and we refresh and we do the same thing, you'll see that it updates accordingly. But now the interesting thing is that the booking 4 rendered now, but before it didn't. And the reason for that is that the binding context already existed where the data object didn't previously. That's just a side note. Let's go and look at how we can set this so that the initial values are set when the application starts. So the first thing that we need to do is we're going to create a preload function, and the preload function is one of the items that's built into the binding engine. So if you have a preload on your view base or bindable element, it will actually run this code before actually parsing the HTML and performing the binding operations on it. So what we want to do is we want to set the first name and last name properties so that that data is available when the form actually gets rendered, right? So to do that, we'll say this.set property, and we'll give it a property name. In this case, it'll be first name, and we'll give it a value, and we'll call it John. And we'll say this.set property last name is Doe. Okay. So just having done that, if I go back to my screen and I refresh, you'll see that it's all set up already for you. Now, the second thing I want to do here is I want to be notified if the first name or last name changes. So to be notified when those property change, there's a convention that we follow within the view base and bindable element where we use the property name, so first name, and we append the word changed on it, and we'll send you the new value on. So let's actually just make this .args, and then we'll console.log the args out. Okay, and we can do the same for last name, but let's just stick with that one for now. Refresh our code, and now you can see John Doe. And now let's go and change this to Jane. And so what you notice here is that the first parameter is the new value and the second parameter is the old value. So it used to be John, it is now Jane. So new value, old value, and now you can perform whatever code you want based upon that change and that event firing. Let's say I want to go and see what is the value inside first name. How do I get that value? So what I'm going to do here is just set up a button click event for us. So I'm going to add a button click dot call, and we'll call this show, and we'll just give it a capital show or title. Alright, so that means that we need a show function over here. And so what do we want to do? Well, we want to say, okay, alert for me this dot get property first name. Save that. Let's go to our browser, click on show, and now you can see there is John. So if I want to set a property, I use this .set property that takes in the property name and the value, and if I want to get the property, I use this .get property and pass on the property name.